taking us live any second. And it says that we're officially live. Welcome, internet. And yeah, so there is that aspect within the within gaming, right? But I don't know if you get that feeling when within your videos, because you cover a wide range of MMOs. I know for me, like I sometimes it gets so brutal that I'm just like, I don't know really the right way forward. Do I just try to ignore it? Do I clap back? Do I just mute
Oh,
that
you ignore
individual?
it. You have to ignore it.
How do you ignore it though? How do you even like? Because
You
I
don't
think
read. You don't read it. That's how
well,
you ignore it.
he used to be so nice in a community, and then all of a sudden it's like you just get those. So do you like you don't even spend any moments in your comment section at all?
I do, but it's to my detriment almost always.
Gosh, isn't it?
There's no I mean, like I'll go through the comments, and if I see something, in fact, the other day it was funny. I was cruising through, and someone left this like multiple paragraph thing, just basically saying "good job" and "I like your stuff," and and then the first comment underneath it was like, "Bro, he's not going to see this. He's not going to reply to this." So I replied to it because I was like, I have to now. So.
Yeah, we're gonna like. Oh, am I not? Don't tell me what to reply to.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, especially in any of my videos that I've had that have got any like algorithm success, the comment section just turns into a disaster because you just get pushed out to such a wide audience that like there's a percentage of crazies, right? So the more people who see it, the higher percentage, and the volume seems greater. So it's just you gotta, yeah, just do your mental health a favor and don't spend too much time in the comment section of your videos, I think.
There's so many things that I think YouTube could do to make that experience better. And then, did you ever follow Mixer at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I streamed on. I might have streamed on Mixer briefly. I don't know, but yes, I did follow Mixer. Yeah.
The channel level I thought was game changing. Like YouTube doesn't give you any historical context. One of the things that really made me jealous at Twitch was when Asmongold was like streaming and somebody was trying to give him was trying to pretend to be like a Final Fantasy 14 crazy fan. And then he just clicked on their name and read their whole chat history. And then it was like, oh, you're just some wow Andy who is just like now trying to pretend that Final Fantasy 14 is all that. And I was like, I wish I had that level of context, because the thing that irritates me is when I get the comment, I've seen all of your videos, and then here's this. Like it's like I've watched all your videos, I've done all this stuff, and I go back, I'm like, I wish Mixer's technology was here on the comments, so I would know if this is somebody's first time they've ever seen any of my videos, because then immediately I could be like, oh, you're a liar. I don't care what then you have to say. But it does catch my attention because somebody who's like, I've been here since the beginning, and this is the worst thing you've ever done or said. And I'm like, is it? Like, I don't know. I don't
You
know
changed. My favorite is you changed, man.
Oh, yes. You've changed.
I hope so. I've been on this platform for 12 years. If I haven't changed, we have a severe problem. You know what I mean?
Man.
Like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's so funny. What is when you talk about, like you said, you hit the algorithm, like, do you like when you hit the algorithm in your favor? Like, there's obviously a monetary benefit there, or is it just more BS for BS sake? What do you think?
I mean, I have to say it's good, right? Because we're making videos presumably because we want people to see them. So the more people that see them, that's better, right? But it comes with its own. Certainly comes, like anytime you have videos that do well, that comes with its own drawback, or it doesn't if you don't read the comments, like I told you. So you could just do that.
That's
And
what
enjoy
everybody
the
keeps
increased
telling me. They're
viewership.
like, Brian, you just need to stop reading the comments. I'm like, oh, but that's a part of it. Like, I even have a video that I just read comments and then I respond to it, and those are my favorite things to make. At some point,
it's and it's a balance. I don't know. I don't even mean to be, because I remember, especially when I first started, I would reply to all the comments. That's like, I feel like that's part of the growth cycle of any person who spends time making content. Like, in the early days, you'd be like, yeah, I'm the kind of creator who will respond to every comment. It's like, well, then that will be all you're doing if you see any iota of success, because all of your time will be spent replying to comments because there's too many comments, right? But
oh yeah,
but
absolutely.
there's certainly you certainly want to gauge your audience, and I guess for me especially, I feel like I have a pretty like level-headed core audience. That goes out the window if you get a video in the algorithm again, because you just get random people seeing your stuff. But I feel like my core viewership is pretty like reasonable, level-headed, not too out of their mind. Um, so for that reason, like the general tone of my comment section tends to be pretty positive, except, with all those freaking bots now. Have
Oh
you
man.
seen the bots imitating channels and trying to
Yes.
people to go on? I've been getting so many emails like, "Oh, is this giveaway real? Because I sent you a message on Telegram." I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I I'm not here to teach internet literacy, but no, this is
No,
this
no,
is a
please stop.
scam. That is not
Scam.
me. That's not my channel name. They just
Yeah.
copy pasted my icon. I wouldn't make a channel called Force on Telegram 10567. Like, what? That's not my channel,
Yeah.
dude. Like, come on.
What I've done is what I've told people, because somebody was like responded to me confused. They're like, why did you heart this comment? And I was like, I heart the comments so you know it's coming from me, because I'm the only
Mm,
one who can do such a thing. And that's
mm,
essentially kind of my way, because like people are like, it's weird because like I've seen people do that on YouTube, but I've also seen people try to, like, I guess, besmirch my good name in game and doing different things like that. Some people have been,
mm.
like, oh, I was playing with that gender, and it's always funny. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I like that my character name is not my channel name, because it's like, that's not me, dude. Like, I
I
don't,
do that too.
yeah,
And so now if anyone says, "Oh, I saw Force," it's like that wasn't me, because my name nowadays it's it's unrecognizable. Like I will just
Bodie
pick the randomest.
McBoatface.
What's that?
Bodie McBoatface. Is
Yeah,
that you?
exactly. Yes, exactly. That was me. I'm sorry what I did to you.
Yeah, it's like, so that's how I kind of always kind of tried to manage it. It's interesting. Now, how much would you say, and we haven't even started the podcast, as always pre-show fun, how much would you say like the number next to your name, especially in terms of your success here on the platform, either hurts you or does it help you? Like when somebody like hits an algorithm and someone's never seen your content before, do you feel like that number has expectations that might be aligned to it and work against you? Let's say, rather than if you're like a small YouTuber, or vice versa. Do you have any kind of thoughts regarding that?
I mean, I guess you can deal with the perception problem where if your channel's not doing particularly well and you have a high number of subs, the idea that you've fallen off, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to, because there's this tendency, I guess, like if a viewer comes across a video with a low amount of views, I won't even put a number out there because it's all relative, but
Right.
if you have a low amount of views, whatever that means to the viewer, and they see you have a high sub count, they'll be like, "Oh, this channel's dead. Like no one cares anymore." Whereas the inverse is like, "Oh, this is a growing channel. Look at this guy. He's got 5,000 subs and he's got a million view video. Like he's on the up and up and
Wow.
all that."
Yeah.
So, and I think it's especially interesting for channels that have been around for a long time. Like I know personally for my channel, I'm very happy with where it's performing at the time, but there's been so many ups and downs. Like that is the story of my time on YouTube, is ups and downs with my content changing, my audience changing. There's just like it's just it just goes through cycles, right? And so there have certainly been times where I'll be sitting here with however many hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and I will have multiple videos perform just poorly. And again, it's all relative, but that's why I'm not even going to bother with numbers, because it is all relative.
Right.
So and for that reason, like you can have people come in and be like, "Oh, I guess this isn't like this channel is not doing so well or whatever." But it's also, I mean, gosh, I know for me personally, in any times where the channel has been on the lower end of performance, um, I'm like, look, I've got people who sub to me for StarCraft videos, and I haven't done those in 10 years. And not all those people unsubscribed. And so you
Mhm.
just kind of get this thing where you've got this buildup over time, and you could have like, I think they should get rid of subscriber numbers, because it really means nothing.
Yeah.
It's active viewership is what matters. Like your
Mhm.
channel having accrued subscribers over time literally means nothing, especially with how YouTube does or doesn't care about who you're subscribed to in terms of what they're going to show you. Like like the algorithm never shows me who I'm subscribed to. They show me who I've been watching recently. That's just how it
Right.
is, right?
Yeah.
And a bunch of nuances, but I mean, I think the subscriber thing, it's literally just a vanity thing, because you can have so many subscribers and not be getting what people would assume you should be for views, for so many reasons. So
Yeah. It's so strange because then some people, there's some, I guess, maybe old form marketing that's like, how many followers do you have on Twitch, how many subs do you have on YouTube? I wish they would also sync up the terminology between all the different platforms, because
Yeah, that'd be nice.
it just gets annoying, oh, you got live redirect here on YouTube, like, all right guys, like,
If it matters to anyone, it matters to the marketing people, right?
Yeah.
Marketing people will care about what's your average video view, what is your sub count or your follower count or your whatever. That, I think that's who those numbers are the most important to. But sometimes I could be like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, there are Call of Duty channels from 10 years ago with 5 million subs, and they're not breaking, like, they're just low views, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and that's where you see, like, it's that adapt or die. Like, it's okay, things have changed. You got to figure out, where you want to fit in if you want to keep playing the game itself. Now, in terms of that, like, when it comes down to like your content and overall, like, just like the last 12 years, like, what brings you, what is the thing that you like making the absolute most? Because like one of the things I enjoy from you is that you kind of sit down and kind of take a future look at what's coming in the MMO category and say, hey, this is what's coming. Like, I always kind of really appreciate the work and research that you put into those videos. Like, but is that like your favorite thing to make, or is that something you just find successful? What do you think?
It's probably a little bit of both. I know I definitely have the most success with scripted and researched stuff, and I think that's because when I'm better in front of the camera, if I've had time to really think about something. I am just not particularly good at off the cuff stuff, like trying to bring my thoughts together and spit that out into sentences that sound coherent and aren't repetitive and don't have a lot of ums. I can't do it. I mean, and there's some people who are really good at it. You look at, especially in our space, the MMO space, like, hats off to Asmongold. He is so very well articulated, just in the moment, and I can't do that. I just can't. I'm much better off if I can, like, look at the screen and pull these things together, think about it, and then try to form it into something. And I think that just shows in the content that I've had that has been successful is typically something that I had time to think about before hitting record. Because I've done all of that too. Like, I did Let's Plays back in the day, and I would do just like sitting down and be like, I'd have an idea and then I hit record and I'd spit out the video, and I don't like how it turns out. I don't think it's as good. I don't think it's as, like, valuable in terms of content for people. And I feel like that's something that I've definitely leaned into more in recent years, is trying to make something valuable for people, whatever that means. Research on an upcoming game, even just that, because rather than like, I will spend 2 full work days digging through all of the information on something and then try to package that into a 20-minute video, and like that I assume is valuable for people, because that stuff will do well for that reason, rather than someone else having to watch all of the developer interviews, all of the updates, read all of the blogs and all of that stuff. I'm like, here's all of that, right? And I'll just make it for you and try to get some editing that's not garbage on top of it, so.
Do you do your own editing?
I did for almost all of YouTube, and it wasn't until last year that I started doing. I would just look out and see who was editing for hire, basically, and I would have people work on a few videos, and then as of I don't know, it's been several months now where I have someone on, like, full time, basically, and they work on, and they are doing most of the editing at this point, and it just lets me focus on the ideas for the videos and the script writing for the videos. But I was just a one-man show pretty much up until last year. Like, over 10 years it was just me doing absolutely everything. And I think it would have been better served getting an editor sooner. If anything, I would tell people, if you can make a situation work, whatever the financing of that means, right? Because that is part of the equation. But I think it's just hard to let go. I know for my personality too, it's hard to like creative control, not to sound too artsy fartsy here, but really, like you have a vision in your, when you think about a video, you might have a vision in your head to what the thing might be. and to think that someone else could get that, like no one else is gonna get but people will get it. Like you find yourself someone, I think it's just for what we do, have someone who knows the space. I think you would be very hard pressed if you were covering MMOs or any of gaming and you would try to get an editor who doesn't know gaming at all, not having the context to know what to look for and what to pull from when you're talking about stuff. I think it would be a challenge. So
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And before we actually kick off the show, I'll just kind of share this little thing. Like I actually am in this very awkward position of needing the help, and so I'm trying to let that go, and at the same time, you know, like not having enough in terms of like the revenue to really kind of justify some of the prices that I see out there. The good news is that I actually just got a new job, and that's actually constituting the I won't have the ability to sit down and do all these edits that I normally have, especially over the last couple months while I've been kind of looking for more work. And it's just like, okay, like here we go, let's buckle up and get this done. And then at the same time, I'm just like, this is gonna be a challenge for me. So, you know, whatever, chat for your thoughts and well wishes on Brian kind of letting this go, because like there's a joy in it, but there's also that sense of like, well, we'll see. You know, we'll find out. So guys, keep it locked. Who knows what will be coming down the pipeline, and if you guys enjoy it. So
well, especially you, don't you have like 40 channels to maintain?
Yeah. Dude, yes, exactly right. Well, that's also just like, because people talk about that, and like somebody goes like, I'd watch it if this was on Prime, and it's like, I guarantee you wouldn't see it. Like you know, when it comes to what people are watching, it's like, because I've experimented. Like one of the things I hope to release like either in the spring of next year is like literally the title of the video it writes itself. I broke YouTube, and you can too, because it's like letting the YouTube algorithm literally work for you. And when we talk about like people who sub for a game, variety is so difficult. And honestly, like if I was playing the game well, it would have been sticking with one game on Prime until I reached such critical success that I could then afford to do variety without too much of a dip. But like I'll dip it down, and it's like, yeah, typically these videos will perform well. Still working on, you know, the algorithm kind of figuring this thing out. But then you go to the individual channels, and it's like, oh wow, the YouTube knows what to do with them. It just handles it. So it's in weird way, it's so much more work up front. But then once the algorithm figures the channel out, it's so nice. It's so freeing. You know, I'm like, I know that's good. We're good. We just move on. You know, it's just like, here's the video. It can be a 3-minute video. I put out a 3-minute video today on one channel, and it does great because that's all the video needs to be, because it's that value driven aspect. I don't have to sit here and like, how can I stretch this to 8 minutes so that it can get the watch time, so that the algorithm says, yes, let's push this to whomever, you know. But you know, who knows, with changes to the YouTube channel page, maybe that changes the whole game for me again. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the shorts tab is coming, right? So
shorts, but it's
shorts
also
and the live tab.
And the personalized. So it's like one of the problems, like if you go to the page, like the whole site's personalized to you, except for somebody's channel. And I was like, yeah, like maybe you like Fantasy Star. Like there you go. Click on that. And then it should show you my Fantasy Star videos, as opposed to like, here's the things that Brian think you might like. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's kick this thing into high gear. Thanks. That was a fun little pre-show. All right, chat will be, we're going to run the intro, and let's do this thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Epic Loot Radio, where Brian and Force are going to be sitting down today and talking about the state of the MMORPG with a real focus on the outlook of 2023 as we near the end of this year and look forward to the future of this genre that we both love and have just a deep connection with. I thought it would be great to kind of get your perspective, because I've already started to see some of your videos as you delve into some of the games that are kind of slated that we know about for 2023. This podcast specifically is actually tagged to Throne and Liberty. That's a game that kind of got delayed, and I kind of first heard about it at that point. But that's something that it'll be interesting to see as more and more games are built on newer technology, cloud compute as a kind of a technology that I think can uniquely benefit MMOs. And so I thought it'd be great to kind of sit down and get a 101 with you, especially as we look at the end of this year and on to the future, with many games that are on the horizon that some people have told me will save the genre, or if they don't save the genre, that the genre is dead. And they're just like, I honestly, in true story, like I told somebody, I'm going to lose my shit when all of a sudden, when I start hearing people not be happy about this game that they've been telling me is the greatest thing since sliced bread for three more years, I'm just like, guys, just calm down. But that's just me. Force, how are
Yeah,
you doing, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
I just need to. The only game, I think, the only MMO that would actually save the genre is probably. I'm sorry, it's not Ashes of Creation. I'm very excited for Ashes of Creation, but that's not a genre-saving game. That is a MMO enthusiast game who's very excited to try a new MMO, and it looks cool. It's not going to hit mainstream. I don't. That would not be. I would not bet on that. Riot's MMO. The Runeterra MMO, if we were investing in a market that said where would you put all of your money into the game that would save it, that would be it.
What do you know about the Runeterra MMO?
Absolutely nothing, but I don't need to. No, I know the basics. I've been watching a lot of the videos compiling information. I mean, Ghostcrawler's Twitter page is just like it's like his stream of consciousness for the development of that game, it seems. But the reason I say that, and it's like, oh well, how do you say that? Like, we don't know so much about Ashes. We know about their systems and their different features and these cool things that they're doing. And yes, but the thing with the Riot MMO for me is, and I came to this like thought recently, Riot today feels like what Blizzard was like in its heyday. And what I mean by that is what Blizzard was for the longest time is they were known for, they're taking something that people like, they're taking something that is popular, and they're kind of like streamlining it, and they're polishing it, and they're just fine tuning it just right. And they're going to make this game that's a massive explosive hit. And that feels like what Riot is. Obviously, League of Legends is like a massive success. You don't even need to talk about it. It's huge. Everyone knows that is like one of the handful of games with things like Minecraft and GTA. That's like one of the handful of games like everyone knows about League of Legends, okay? All of the non-gamers know. They've heard of League. More so than Dota even, right? But man, like looking at Riot's recent success with their other games and the other genres that they've pushed into, I mean, I am just blown away even just by Valorant. Like, they set out to make like a more like family friendly, more approachable, more digestible Counter-Strike, and they did it, and it's like a great feeling game. They went from making a top down like clicking stuff and a skill shot game into making a really good shooter. Like, honestly, that was all the evidence that I needed. And they've had plenty of other success at shooting off into different forms of media, and then some of their other games. Legends of Runeterra, right? That's another thing. Mm-hmm. And then they have their auto chess game, which I forget what the League one is called. Do you happen to know offhand? But I played the Dota auto chess, and it was one of the first phone games that I've ever actually enjoyed. And I know League has one that's massively successful, but I just feel like Riot has the funding and they have the right mindset to make the kind of game that could go massively popular in the mainstream. And it is really for that reason alone, and with them having success in other genres like beyond League, that I feel like they have what it takes to make like the next WoW, if anything is going to be the next WoW. Because I love Ashes. I am super pumped for Ashes. I will play hundreds of hours of Ashes. It's not going to be the next WoW. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I like how you're going on defense, because I can already feel the comments on this. Not on live. They're not going to come in here and live and debate us. They'll wait till this is finished as a part of VOD. But no, I feel like Ashes is a love letter to MMO fans. Mm-hmm. And what MMO fans assume, I think incorrectly, is that we're some massive number of players. Like, I think WoW, for what it did, it invited a lot of people into this space for the first time, making it accessible, making it interesting. But when you actually break it down, it's like MMOs, like, they're just not right now getting bigger. Maybe Riots will do that, but I feel Ashes will appease a lot of what people have want, and then they'll realize what a lot of people want ends up not being a lot of people. Like, if Ashes has like 300,000 active players, that's going to be wonderful. That's actually a really good number. But I think when people would see that, they would see you would start to see people kind of putting that narrative like, oh, it's a dead game. It's not a good game. Like not, there's not millions of people actively playing this all the time. And I think that's going to be something they're going to have to struggle and battle against, because then you have the YouTube, algorithm, which is going to reward people for leaning into that kind of narrative and mindset. And that's the death spiral that MMOs go through. But I do actually would like to know your thought on what I've heard Riot say, because I've heard them say this, and I'm very curious overall, because this will get into kind of questions that I have for you. They said, if you want a single player game, go play a single player game. We're making an MMO. What is that? How does that feel for you? Like, what is that? Is that a good feeling? Or is that a concern? Especially with knowing nothing really about the game outside of its prehistory lore.
I feel like the MMOs that I've enjoyed the most and that I think likely do the most, because I think it goes without saying that like a lot of the casual audience there, for one, they're usually focused on PvE. And there's a lot of people who like to do things on their own accord. And I think that's just largely due to, especially, as fans of the genre, like the golden days of MMOs, some 10 or so years ago, 10, 15 years ago, as those people get older, they have less time to dedicate to like scheduled things and coordinated things that are massive time investments. Like that's the case for me. I would be all down for 8-12 hour raids, 10 years ago. Nowadays, it's just not going to happen. Like, especially if you throw family into the mix, even just a partner, if you want to have a partnership, like it's hard to justify that kind of thing. So
I would say, like, have you ever had sex? Like, because it's, like a certain 8-hour raid, or I'm not going to last 8 hours, but damn, like,
yeah. But I guess my point with that is, though, that I feel like you need to have content that people can do by themselves. But I don't think that has to mean it's like a single player game. And to your quote, I imagine what they're probably referencing there is there's just going to be a lot of multiplayer cooperative elements. And I love that. Like, that's why I love the genre, right? I love feeling like I'm in this big world. There's other people, and even less so the scheduled stuff. What I love is the impromptu stuff. I love coming across someone farming in an area, and if they're opposite faction, trying to take them out. If they're the same faction, working together and dealing with people as they come, and discovering things, and just all that stuff. Doing that with other people around, I love. And I guess I hope, because that is kind of vague, that the quote there, I hope that sort of element is what they're referencing, because I know there are a lot of MMOs that are basically like people play them like single player games. I play a lot of MMOs like single player games up to a point, but again, I love the online, the interactive nature of them,
I
and
love
having people
to build off of that. Like, I really enjoy and respect, even if you're playing it solo, that your solo experience is having an impact on the greater sense of the game. Like, there's this almost way passive multiplayer is how I think of it. And this just comes from like my Final Fantasy 11 roots. Like, playing in a zone for your faction was earning you points, and then every week that got calculated and said, oh, now your faction controls this zone, and there's benefits for doing that. And so it always kind of felt like, even if you were off solo, you were still a kind of a part, like a cog in the machine, as opposed to like, I am the sole hero and nothing can defeat me, and I had this great experience. And then you look back and go like, wait, I thought this was an MMO. Like, I have no connection to anybody. Like, I have no connection to the game. And you kind of just then say, I guess that was fun. And you kind of dip out. But that kind of brings me to my first like real question I've been asking as a part of this like series that I've been running on the podcast, is that, what is an MMO for you? Like, how would you define the MMORPG? And you can break it up any which way you want.
Is an MMO. Oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, that term gets slapped on so many games nowadays. I feel like it'd be helpful if there's more classification, but because you've got like what I consider the MMO would be the traditional games, the World of Warcrafts, ESO, Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy, BDO, like that whole thing. And then you have the MMO lights, the things like Destiny, and like there are people there, but they kind of come in and out. There's no permanence to it. you're not necessarily seeing the same people over and over again. It's just whatever 3 to 5 people that decide to phase into the zone that you're in at the time. Um, but I guess the biggest thing would be large scale world, lack of instancing to a degree. I'm not totally against instances, but I like when it feels open. Like if you want to zone me into dungeons or whatever, that's fine. Hell, if you even want to zone me between zones like Guild Wars does, I'm okay with that too. Not I don't prefer that, but like the lobby based games, I don't count. Like for that reason, I don't consider Destiny like a true MMO because I'm spending my time. Most of my time is spent in a menu,
Mhm.
loading into the different activities that I want to do. And that's just that pulls me out of it way too much, right? I know they try to make it feel like you're flying in space, you're in orbit, but it's not. Like it's not. You know what's funny? I've been playing No Man's Sky recently.
Oh yeah.
Interestingly enough, and for one, that game's it's come miles. It's really interesting, but it feels like I wish Destiny was Destiny, but with No Man's Sky stuff in a way. Um, like I wish there's a feeling of connectedness to the game because you're in it and you're going from like surface to flying in atmosphere to hyperspeed to another solar system and that's something that just Destiny that's not to even call No Man's Sky an MMO, but that's just to say that there's a feeling of connectedness to the game while you're playing the game. Whereas with Destiny, I feel like I'm playing a game and then I'm in a menu. And then I'm playing the game again, and then I'm in a menu, and it doesn't feel like cohesive at all. So I think MMOs, to answer the question, I think MMOs, it's like a big multiplayer space that feels connected, that you feel kind of rooted in as you're playing and anything that pulls you out of that really kills it for me. And then like for me, I would also slot in all the RPG stuff. You're grinding for gear. You've got stats. You probably have levels. You have various difficulty group activities to do, dungeons, raids, whatever, all this stuff. Like I would throw that in there too. But really, the most important thing for me is the connectedness to the game and the other people being there as well.
Yeah, one of the things that to praise Destiny and what I feel like they've kind of done in a way when I talk about games not existing within bubbles is that one of the things that I think Destiny has done so well and in a way kind of somewhat sets MMOs back right now is that Destiny's that drop in drop out multiplayer. It's so easy, especially with cross play, cross save. Like just play the game. Yeah, you're in space, but it's so much easier just to be like, yeah, I'm playing. You don't have to say this is the server I'm on or this is like, like it just handles that aspect for you. And I do hope that we'll see. It'll be difficult because I know there's definitely people who have a mindset of like server culture within, like especially older MMOs. Like this is my server, this is my culture, this is something unique to this world. But then essentially, like what you see now is a lot of like I think a lot of people kind of get on. They're like, wait a minute, like okay, you're on what? I'm on this server. Okay, how do we figure out how do we play together? In that space ends up becoming something that is like I think it's still a challenge. Like Phantasy Star Online 2, I was really hoping with New Genesis that they would kind of go the Destiny route, but then they still have their not just their ships, but then they still have their channels that you have to be like, oh, you're on this channel. Okay, let me switch channels and find you. And I just wish it kind of handled it and called it a day on that regards.
Yeah. It's funny. I think I've changed my opinion on that over time because I used to be like a really strong believer in server culture, mostly because of my classic, like original WoW days, my 2004, 2005 WoW days, where, there was at the time for me, I felt like a magic to knowing the guilds, knowing the people on the server with your faction or against your faction, knowing the rogues who were always ganking outside of capital city or that kind of thing. But I think over time I've just realized like there is an inevitable death to that as people come and go, but mostly as people go, as people leave and the server base drops and you see like things like that WoW still deals with to this day, like faction imbalance, right? There'll be like a slight discrepancy in percentages. It'll be like 45 Horde, 55 Alliance. But then because of that, it just snowballs where it's like that's like 95% Alliance now, just because the people didn't want to be at any disadvantage for whatever for whatever the implications are. Like if you've got a game that has like zone resource control and so the numbers just put you at a huge advantage, or even just the fact that hey, there are more hardcore raiding guilds in this faction, there aren't as many here, So we're all going to server transfer to somewhere, and it's just inevitable that it flip flops or just servers end up dying. And I think for that reason, just for like long term health of the game, I just no longer feel like having those hard servers unless the companies are super on top of merging and having these hybrid things where servers are melding together. But just having these silos of people, they just it ends up eventually just going south. Basically,
Yeah.
that's what's played out in from what I've seen time and time again with any MMO that's done the hard line server thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And this kind of ties into kind of my next question because you brought up obviously No Man's Sky. And obviously right now I've been seeing people call New World's Brimstone Sands update, which is scheduled to come out here like in like 10 days ish. An expansion. I'm just like, oh, come on, like, we not call it an expansion. Do you think that the new update is an expansion? No judgment if so.
Honestly, I mean, at first I was a little sour on it because my initial reception was, oh, great, they're adding a sand zone. Big whoop.
Ooh.
But they do seem to actually be making some pretty big substantial changes. I still think there's probably more that they need to do. The biggest problem it seems right now are in like issues with server economies, talking about servers again, with server economies, but even more so particular guilds or conglomerates of guilds just dominating.
Mhm.
It's kind of again that snowball effect where basically what happened was you would have in New World, there would be guilds that would perform really well early on, and then that gave them control of the zones and the towns. And as a result of that, they had an economic advantage, and that economic advantage rolled directly into a power advantage. And then they just became basically unstoppable, where they were stronger, richer, and better geared than everyone else. And they just stomping the wars and controlling everything. And it just, again, pushed competition off of the servers, and then even more so there's no one to contest with them. So they've been talking about doing stuff to deal with that. They referenced some things to fix with shell companies, like having different guilds helping you, basically like the
Mhm.
same guild but logging into different characters, and then using that as a way to bypass some of the systems that are meant to prevent that kind of monopoly. So point is there's stuff that still think they need to do, but I am looking forward to this update. It actually seems more substantial than I thought at first glance. But I still think it's probably needs like the game still probably needs more overall to have like a true big comeback. I don't think this update is going to be the turning point, but I think it is a step in the right direction. I think they're doing some good stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so then the question would be is that do you see them going more in a No Man's Sky where it's just consistent updates and ever expanding, updates, or going with a true expansion at some point down the road, right? Because we
Oh,
believe that this is one update 1.7. Do they
yeah.
do a 2.0, method, or do you see them going in that direction, or do you feel like they just going to keep putting out updates until they either stop or they continue to grow?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard thing to guess. I don't know if they've mentioned publicly. I'm just unaware if they've talked about whether or not they intend to sell like named expansions. I don't know if they talked about doing that route or not. Um, I mean, I guess either way, if they're going to sell, honestly, I think probably it's astounding that the game is not on console
Mm.
because it is a game that would clearly play very well on console. You look
Oh
at the
yeah.
combat, like
I play it
it's a
on
controller game.
controller. I play
Yeah.
it 100% on controller. Like, be like, hey, I was like, I release updated guides with like configuration layouts, and
Mm,
the one thing I wish like I can't do is I can't detect the game state, because if I could, oh my gosh, that'd be game changing. I'd be able to set up so many more intricate ways of playing it. Yeah, it's gotta get, if it got console like controller support and then came to consoles, like this would be a dream, assuming
yeah.
that they at least had cross play, cross save. The one
Mm,
thing that keeps me from going and playing ESO again is because I'd go play it on PC now, but I have an Xbox character and there's no cross save. It's like, even if you wanted to keep them separate, let me keep my character. Like, it's all Microsoft. Let's go, but they
yeah.
haven't done that yet. And if they ever announce that, I think I'd actually be willing to step back into that game. But I wouldn't want a separate character that's on a console just for the hell of it, right? Like Guild
Right.
Wars 2 just did that on PC with the Steam version. It's it's a whole different version, and your accounts aren't linked up. And I was like, oh, I guess I won't bother with that one either way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say though, just the reason I brought the console thing up is because I feel like their best bet, like if New World really wanted like a big second shot in people's eyes, I would guess it would be rolled into something like a console launch where they had some big sweeping changes, a huge update, whatever that means, whatever that entails, and then also launch on consoles. I think that could be one of those kind of second win situations, or maybe they don't even need it because, like with No Man's Sky, if you put out consistent quality updates and the game just improves with time, as long as you have a baseline of people who care and the game wasn't just abandoned, then you can just build up a better reputation, and with that, more people will flock to the game. So that could happen as well. But I throw that in because it feels like a natural thing where if they were ever going to do some huge, like big, like New World 2.0, launch it on console too, because then you're going to get all those new players, and the game is clearly fit for it. Maybe with the exception of dealing with like inventory and bank space, but those are issues that
you could manage that with they like that's just design, like UI design and how the controller interacts, like hell using the Destiny method of like here's the little cursor thing that you drag and select.
I don't
items.
like that as much.
It's not, I don't like it as much. I do
Um,
prefer Snap, but I'm saying like there's options out there. They exist, so you're not going to be sitting here like stranded. And then to your point, also, Amazon has Luma, like it's their cloud streaming platform. And unlike Google, it feels like Amazon is actively interested in continuing in gaming. And that's where it's like, like bring it to Luma, bring it to console, bring it everywhere. I think it would be a really exciting game that would play out well, especially on the newest consoles, right? Like don't go Xbox, One X or, PlayStation 4. Like this is a Series X, PS5 forward kind of game. Then I think you would have that gives it a lot of power. It opens it up to a lot of gamers too. And with no subscription model, geez Louise, like it just feels like it's very inviting if somebody just wanted to pick it up, play it, and put it down and maybe check on it every couple of years,
I think they could. I don't know. I don't know Amazon's finances, but I'm sure they have a lot of money. But no, when it comes to this particular project, I would be more concerned if the New World downwards trend was continuing, but it's actually reversing. It's not going back to the 900,000 concurrent that it was. That would take a New World 2.0, New World overhaul with a console launch or something. It would take that, but they have been trending upwards. I think the concurrent daily, it looks like I'm checking out SteamDB now. It got as low as like 20-ish thousand concurrent for the daily peak, and that's now up to around 50 like nowadays. So they are like gaining momentum in the opposite direction. And I think for that reason, that is a good sign that support is likely to continue, because if it just kept on dipping and kept on dipping and 20 turned to 10 turned to 5,000 concurrent peak, then I would be like, they might Anthem this game, right? They might just yeet it out of the window. Which, speaking of which, I'm so sad about Anthem.
Dude, me too.
There's an alternate universe in which Anthem was phenomenal and like an amazing looter shooter. And
here's the thing: like EA is like making public statements about how they would like to sell. Like, I think if they actively invested and got Anthem, because it sold, it was like one of the top selling games of that year. Like it made plenty of money, but it's like if they actually invested in it, I think they would probably not have too much trouble selling because they have Apex. I think companies right now like Sony or Microsoft, they're looking at more of that reoccurring revenue in terms of games as a service games. And Anthem, the fact that they canceled it on its birthday, like literally was like the biggest middle finger, especially after putting out like updates like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. I was like, they could turn this thing around. They could turn this around.
I didn't make this up. Anthem Next was a thing, right? Like they talked about how they had an internal team working on this big overhaul for Anthem, and
they showed off stuff. It was glorious.
Oh no,
dude! Yeah. Go back into my archives, dude. I'm like, all right, guys. I mean, here we go. Like this looks really good. This could be a lot of because they nailed the javelins, right? Like if Anthem didn't nail the javelins, I think it would have been just DOA. Like it would have been but the javelins were fun as hell to play, and it's like. And then everything else around it was like, it has no idea what it's trying to be.
Yeah,
You had no idea.
it just felt empty, but like I think combat felt good enough. I think their ideas for the loot system was good. They just, they had like they launched with like one dungeon and the world felt so empty at times, but it looked great. It was a cool space to play in. And the idea with these storms and these massive like other dimensional creatures warping in and the javelins flying them, yes, even though that was like a 1 year pre-launch addition to the game, they nailed it. Good job, guys, cobbling that together. Oh god, dude. Because yeah, in my head Anthem was going to be like, okay, this is a looter shooter in the vein of Destiny, but it's an actual like persistent world. I'm not doing that loading screen, bouncing in and out, and
Mhm.
I'm so sad.
Oh, dude. To this day, if they ever go with an Anthem 2.0 or Anthem 2, or if they ever like bring that IP back, I think that it would definitely garner a lot of people's attention, even if it was
Yeah.
like, oh, this game's gonna fail again.
Yeah.
Like, just make a good game and then keep making a good game. I would love to have seen it also succeed as in terms of an option against something like Destiny, just to give people more looter shooters in the space. And we have a new looter shooter right on the horizon with the First Descendant, at least the beta kicking off the 20th. But Nexion, free to play.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it
there's
looks
a lot of
pretty.
like,
It looks pretty, and I'm hopeful, but I have this like odd feeling that it's going to be like a worse Outriders, and people already don't love. I actually genuinely really enjoyed my time with Outriders. It just hit a cap. It wasn't like the never-ending looter shooter kind of game,
right.
but I feel like the First Descendants could be like a just not as good Outriders. But I hope I'm wrong because the
Yeah.
screenshot's so cool. There's a screenshot of this guy with this badass looking armor walking up to this thing, shooting like 14 blue lasers out of his forehead. And I'm like, that looks sick. I
Let's
hope
go.
it's good, but
I hope it's good. It's all gonna be how it feels 100% with the First Descendant. The name kind of is a little bit like, I haven't gotten used to the name either. I'm like, all right.
Some of these game names.
And
There's some
but
really bad Undecember. Have
you
heard
bring up
that one?
Outriders. Yeah.
What's the name?
It's like, all right, guys, I guess we're just running out of pick a dictionary, pick three
What
words.
is that name? It doesn't make it's dumbest thing.
Yeah. Well, Anthem was a weird name that they had to kind of pull out of their hat because they like because they were going to call it something else.
It's not as bad as Undecember though. Sorry, go on.
You're good. But back to like Outriders, like one of the things that was always like boggling my mind is that they were like really leaning into that we're not a games as a service. We're not a games as a service. And I'm like, I think people are going to play it and then they're going to leave the game because it's not a games as a service. It's like you can play it, you can beat it, you can move on. But then it's like marketing and like they're having like these things. It's like kind of like, are they a games as a service in disguise? Like all of a sudden it's like, hey, now that you've played Outriders and World Slayer, now we're gonna like, do they evolve into that? Or is it like, I mean, heck, they even reported they haven't got any royalties from Square Enix because it didn't sell well. Like it just didn't sell well. And it's like, all right, like had some fun. I had a lot of fun with Outriders. I played the heck out of that game. I haven't finished the expansion. I tried and it was still felt like it was a like buggy mess. And I just was like, well, I got to do other things for work right now. So I'll come back to it.
That was probably one of its biggest issues. The cap on like the actual replayability to the game. So I don't know how much you spent in the end game loot grind when the game first launched, but basically once you got to the Eye of the Storm, that is all you did.
Yeah,
because that is where all the best stuff came the quickest. It made no sense to do any of the other expeditions. So after, and it wasn't even like, it was somewhere around 70 hours, which is a lot for a game, but it's not a lot for a loot game. And I think like it's important to contextualize that because people are expecting hundreds, sometimes thousands of hours out of these things. So like after 70 or so hours, you climb that ladder of loot and then you get to the point where you're farming Eye of the Storm. And I was doing it all solo, just because, again, that's how I play a lot of the time. And once I was farming Eye of the Storm, that's all it made no sense to do any of the other content. And I know the expansion was meant to address that, but I feel like that expansion just never really took off. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it. I will play it at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it. I was doing other stuff when that thing came out, but I do want to check it out because I did really like the game and I played it quite a bit at launch or around launch. Yeah, but also speaking of it, I don't know. I swear that I heard at the very least, I know that Square Enix has said that they are continuing to gonna invest. They feel like Outriders was one of their big IPs. They said that, even though it didn't sell amazingly well. But I swear that I heard something about there being an Outriders MMO. Like that was the grand vision of it.
That would be the genius part, because tying this back to how we started the podcast with Riot, it's that one of the things that for me, I was like, why New World's going to struggle is there's no nostalgia. And yet, like, if you can take Outriders and you could end up building that into, like, we've got these games and there's this interesting world. And then all of a sudden it, like I said, like it has I felt constantly that it was this game that was going to evolve into something else, whether it was that original game or it was something else. Like it's setting itself up in terms of lore, gameplay. Like if they could get those bugs and everything kind of worked out, like it could be something that I think I would be happy to spend more time with. The hub and spoke networks. Like it made me always want, like, where's the drop in, drop out multiplayer? Where, like, just make this always online. Yes, you're going to have some people kind of not like that, but I think those people are getting smaller and smaller as more and more people are like, yeah, I would love just to be online and see people in social spaces and Outriders, right? Like it didn't have any of that. Like it was, I felt like this is phase one, and then we're going to do something bigger with it down the road. And if they did something like that, I wouldn't be surprised. And hell, I'd sign up. Like I had a good enough experience despite its issues that I would sign up easily, even if I wasn't making content around it, you know, to jump in and see what that was about. So I
think it was fairly competent and successful in its own right. It doesn't have like the level of fidelity and polish that something like Destiny does, but I think it did what it did well enough. I just wish the bugs were a huge issue, and then like I said, you just ran out of stuff to do sooner than later. So I'll be interested to see what they do with that franchise. But aren't we here to talk about MMOs?
That's how these things roll, man. You never know what you're getting. It's called Epic Loot Radio. So we're talking about anything with loot in it.
Related. Okay.
Anything loot related, we get it. And who knows? Sometimes
you want to talk about Diablo 4?
Dude, we could talk. Yeah, I do want to talk about Diablo 4. So because I played it and I think I'm like, this game's awesome. Like it's fun. But I'll come back to that in a second, because Creature actually talks about like Game Pass having an effect on Outriders. And then Brothas, like I pinned this because I wanted to actually bring it up to you, because you made a video talking about WoW coming to consoles, which like for me as a controller player, I was like, I would actually, like with the buttons, I might actually have to re-up and try out Dragonflight with the updated changes in terms of like controller support.
The new stuff sounds amazing.
So to the question to you then, like, do you think they will actually bring WoW to console?
I don't know. I mean, I'm making a video, right? Like that's what I did. The brass tacks of it is that Blizzard is giving more controller support, and they're adding more features that are clearly aimed at controller gameplay.
Yeah.
In addition to the icons of the control icons are like in the Dragonflight beta, like, you know, the Xbox and PlayStation icons, and then just like a general gamepad icons. So all that stuff is becoming native in the game. Obviously, that can just be an accessibility thing, right? It can just be an accessibility on PC thing. But I feel like console port has basically laid the path for Blizzard to be like, you can do a console launch. Like we can make the menu navigation work. We can make all the UI elements. Like all of that stuff can work. Console port and immersion, it's literally all you need right now to play WoW as if it were a console game. It's like, it's that good. The biggest issue that I've had has been the targeting, because there is that extra like awkwardness, except for melee. Like melee, it feels great for most of the skills, but targeting for healers, I think, is its own concern. But these are problems that have been navigated in other games, specifically 14, and they can be navigated in WoW. And I'm so tired of people telling me, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that." And like you're telling me you can do Mythic. It's like, people do it. There are videos on YouTube of people playing gamepad, hitting Gladiator in PvP, and clearing Mythic raids. Like this stuff is happening. I think that, like, I get the concern about people being worried, like, well, even if you can do it, it's maybe more cumbersome, and these players are going to drag us down or whatever. If that is a huge concern, and even if it's not a huge concern, it could just also be the case that they do separate servers. I talked about it in the video, but ESO does that. If you're playing ESO on PlayStation, you are only playing with people playing on PlayStation. And so you're not coming across PC player, and they're like, "Oh, well, you can't play WoW without add-ons." Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
It might not be like the perfect experience, but yes, you can. And so there could exist a demographic of players who are playing WoW on Xbox and PlayStation, and they are siloed off into their own worlds, and maybe they don't have the add-ons. But WoW, like, what has Blizzard been doing over these past 20 years, if not taking the most successful add-ons and throwing them in WoW?
Mhm.
That has continuously happened. Like, you've seen
Yeah.
it time and time again. Interface stuff, but mostly, I guess it's a lot of interface stuff, really. But I mean, even just freaking like, I remember when WoW first came out, and I would be tabbed onto Thoughtbot and Wowhead, and like checking out the map to see where the quest things are, and then they eventually released an add-on that let you see. I don't know if it's Thoughtbot or Wowhead, or I don't remember what the add-on was back in the day, but there's an add-on that showed you the quest location in the game. It's like, holy shit, I don't have to read all the text anymore. Awesome. And then, but WoW eventually just did that themselves. Eventually, WoW just took that add-on and they put it into the game. So I mean, it could totally happen. Like, if and actually, I don't even know. Does WoW basically have DBM in the game right now? Like, is there a deadly boss mobs equivalent? I'm not sure if they eventually added one. I still
They've been
use
updating.
DBM.
I know that they've been updating like some of the mechanics stuff so that it starts to communicate that, because I didn't ever, when I played WoW, I didn't have DBM on, and it's like, oh, there's some mechanics, and then you can kind of start to see the telegraphs to kind of like, so that's probably been coming in throughout it in that regards. But I can't speak to what WoW has done or has not in terms of that. But my answer would be is like, if it's ever going to come to console, like I would bookmark 11.0, not like obviously Dragonflight, but essentially like they continue to make those steps, which actually has me interested. When you said in your video talking about like just the target nearest, I was like, that's what people always like, how do you target this guy in 14? I was like, I press this button and it's done, because it knows. It's like, oh, you want to obviously clearly target the nearest NPC,
the thing you're standing next to and facing. That's
and
all it really takes.
And
so many
as
games,
well, like just hey, we're good to go. And so like I felt like I actually have an advantage in several things in 14 because of the controller.
Do you know, I only played 14 some years ago. It was like 7 or 8 years ago. Does 14 have, for the PC version, do they have the near object one button interact without having to like right click on it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know Guild Wars 2 has that. Whenever you're standing next to something, you can hit F.
Yeah.
And you'll interact with it.
Because of Guild Wars 2, I've remapped all of my, anytime I'm doing an MMO in New World, I have F as my interact key. So I've set that as like my standard, even in Final Fantasy. Like I'm like, that's my target nearest, etc. And then the same thing on controller, it has that. So it's like, it's so nice. And that's one of the things that I was getting so frustrated with in WoW when I was playing back in Shadowlands. I was like, I actually had to make it like a multi-button press to like target loot and like all this stuff. And I was like, this is so like,
that's
just give me a one button.
Yeah. I think that plus the actual combat, the action combat targeting, it's just huge. It's going to make that I'm interested to try it out just for the sake of seeing what it's like, because I think the cool thing too about the idea of the console WoW is it also basically coincides with like a action RPG WoW. Like, it goes from a tab target game to an action game with those features and playing with a gamepad.
Yeah.
And I think that's just cool. I mean, even just like the different perspective, and you try to min max in these games, right? So you play all the way zoomed out. You want to get the widest FOV. You need to see what's going on around and behind you all the time. But playing like zoomed in over the shoulder with the gamepad moving around, the play space feels different. Like camera perspective is a big thing, right? I mean, just think about the difference from like an FPS to a freaking RTS game where you're looking down and away. That's like an extreme example, but clearly camera perspective gives a different experience. And I think that alone is what some of what I've enjoyed the most when I've tried playing WoW with a controller, because it feels you're getting a different perspective to the world, and it's pretty cool. It's like a tighter, more honed, like zoomed in perspective, and I think it's interesting. It's a different way to play, and so I would totally. It's like when ESO first launched on PC, but it eventually ended up. I think I played the Xbox version when it came out, And it was a ton of fun jumping back in and crushing all of those noobs on the console. So if WoW wants to do that too, if WoW wants to launch on console and I could take all my 20 years of experience playing that game, I think it'd be a ton of fun. It'd be like a really cool experience, basically.
Yeah, I think it would be. It would open up to a lot of a new audience, you know, from an accessibility perspective, and I think that'd be really cool. Now, we did talk about Diablo 4, like as in terms of like a game that will have no lack of dramatic effect on the YouTube algorithm until at least it launches, and then it's going to go one of two directions in that regards. But clearly, with Immortal, a lot of people are like very concerned about it. What do you think about Diablo 4? Like, are you in the like excited camp? Are you in the concerned camp? I think Blizzard has continued to like withdraw or goodwill like from players for so long that it's like everybody kind of feels a little tapped out when it comes to a Blizzard game. But where do you fall?
I mean, I think I would be lying if I didn't say that it's probably going to be a solid game. It just like the big questions around stuff like monetization, but then also, how is the end game? How is the loot system? All of those things, people worried about trading. There's a lot of nuance that people are concerned about, and not even new. Like there's some big things like the monetization that people are concerned about. But I think regardless, when Diablo 4 comes out, it's probably going to be really fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't know is if that's going to be really fun to play for 2 to 4 weeks or really fun to play for multiple years. That's the thing that I don't have the answer to. But like, I'm definitely excited because if we're laying out all of the games coming out in the next 2 to 3 years, Diablo 4 is high up on the list of games that I expect will be good and fun and I will enjoy. It's just the duration of that enjoyment that I can't answer. It's kind of the same thing with New World. I was like, this looks sick. I played early tests. I was like, this was a lot of fun. You can't, like, it's hard to really gauge the long term. There are things we can point to, but like, well, this could be an issue, and that could be an issue, and that could be an issue, and it could or it couldn't. Like, we just won't know for sure until everything comes together at the end, and we finally see what they settle on with all those different aspects, including monetization. But honestly, like, yes, I will kick up a stink about monetization, and because I think it should be talked about, and I wish it was better. But bad monetization for the most part, unless you go completely overboard, it won't stop a game from being successful. Lost Ark's monetization is horrendous. It had, what did it break 1 million concurrent on launch or something? Like, it's just crazy.
Like 1.3, 1.4, yeah.
Like, and everyone knew what was going to happen. The game was out for years overseas and like whatever regional differences, but we knew what to expect. We knew it was going to be bad. We knew it was going to be pay to win, pay to skip, pay for convenience. We knew all of that. Didn't matter. Like, it did millions and millions and millions of people played.
And that's one of the things that I really appreciate what Lost Ark did, is it really, I think, made a lot of people question like their stance. Because I've always said, like, if the gameplay is good, gamers will justify any system. I've seen gamers like, oh, I love this game. And yes, it does the thing that I just complained about in this other game, but I love this game. So this one does it in a fair way, in a way that's respecting the player's time or whatever, So
I think those games have better long-term success.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Because like we just said, Lost Ark was phenomenally successful at launch. How's it doing now?
It's still like in the top 5 Steam games played. It's still doing fine. Like, in terms of that, like, is it going, like, no game is like really going to continue to maintain that high. Like, it's
of course,
the exception.
It's impossible.
But it's like, last I checked, it was like 200,000, 300,000 concurrent players. It's like on Steam all the time. Like, it's like, all right. And then whenever there's another expansion or update, etc., you'll see those numbers climb back up because people come dip in and dip out. The thing that Lost Ark has going forward is it has years to figure out all its problems, the bigger problems. And so then it was able to launch in the West in a very polished way with lots of content. For people to kind of jump into. I guess that's the thing
too, right? They had years of updates and new content, like you just said, to roll out, versus a game that doesn't have that launches and then people stagnate sooner because they lose that progression. So,
and that's why I've always made the case that it's like the MMO that succeeds is the MMO that figures out how to invite players back in and make that a continual invitation to always come and check out the updates, right? Because no MMO will launch with the amount of content that WoW has, that 14 has now, that even Lost Ark has. Like we got Throne of Liberty, we talked about Ashes, we talked about Riot. And it's like even with those games that they'll people who will overconsume them and then we'll just let them hit the floor. Like that's just how they play these kind of games. And so no matter what, you see those dips and then you see the narrative shift to like, oh, the game's losing players, it must be bad. And so then it makes people afraid so they don't play. And so it's like the death spiral is something that I think everybody's going to go through. And then it's all about that. Hey, we have an update, an expansion, a big patch, et cetera, to try to bring people back into the fold and into the mix to enjoy. And ultimately, that's going to be what we have to see. But like as we look towards like next year for 2023, like Throne of Liberty, is there anything that's on your radar that you're particularly excited about checking out? That I'm assuming that you're not under like NDA for game A, B, C, or D.
Oh, I should have thought about this before the show. I don't know. I mean, so like Throne and Liberty looks cool. A lot of question marks around that, right? It's really, I think it's really hard with a lot of the Eastern MMOs that come to the West to see where they're going to fall and if they're going to have an audience over here, really. For the longest time, I was following very closely Core Punk, and I'm still interested in that. A little wind out of the sails, but heart goes out to them, right? Because they're pretty sure they're a Ukrainian developer, so they are obviously dealing with all of everything that's going on, right? New World update on the immediate horizon. Actually, isn't that out like next week or something? I think the Brimstone Sands update is out next week. Diablo 4 is coming. A longer term, something like the Riot MMO, yes, Ashes in the 3 to 5 years from now when it launches. Soulframe is actually something I'm very, very keen to see and hear more about because Warframe I think it's a cool game. I've liked it when I've played it. There were periods of time where I played it a ton and I would hit that grind wall, but for the most part, it's been a game that I come back. It's because it's free and I never need to pay something new to jump back in and check out the updates. I've been able to consistently come back and try the game and have fun with it. So I'm interested to see what they do with Soulframe because they're talking about a more like grounded approach to a game. The setting is more intriguing to me. This fantasy, what is it, Princess Mononoke, or I don't know if I pronounce that wrong every time I say it, but just the fantasy magic foresty kind of stuff I really like. And they're talking about slower, more melee focused combat. That game seems really cool, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. I'm trying to think about what else is on the horizon. There's stuff.
You've been following Blue Protocol at all? It's been MIA for a little bit.
Yeah, but is that the game? Is that actually an MMO or is
they classify it as an MMO? Okay. It's got a persistent online world, but it's an action combat, and they're gonna put people into channels, and it's got a player-driven economy. So like. Ultimately, I mean, until it releases or until we hear, because we haven't had any real news on it for like over a year. And so until like they start getting ready to promote it and share more on it, who knows? Anything could have probably changed in the interim because they've been, I guess retooling and working on feedback. My hope is that they actually do the Ashes thing and upgrade to Unreal Engine 5 while the game isn't even out yet. Because it's like, why not? Like if you're a couple years away, like, all right.
Yeah. I guess outside of that, I'm just trying to look through the list. I mean, there's some things that like would be cool, but we don't know anything about. Blizzard's got their survival MMO coming out. There's that Dune survival MMO-ish game that's making. I guess there's a Marvel one in the works as well. I forget what studio that's at, but I remember
licensed ones get tricky, dude, because it's like we've seen that go poorly with Star Wars, like with them shutting down galaxies. Like it's like, all right, we're done.
Speaking of which, it doesn't have to be this exactly, but I would love a next gen Star Wars MMO. SWTOR was really cool in a lot of ways. In my head, I envision like Jedi Fallen Order graphics, but with an MMO. Like give me like lightsabers and freaking Sith and like all this stuff. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I just I've gotten more and more into the Star Wars universe just as like a setting in recent years, and I think there's so much potential for it. And as much as I love SWTOR, it just like looks so ancient nowadays. It's really hard. Even watching YouTube videos on SWTOR, I'm like, this just does not look great. So I would love to see an updated one of those. That'd be cool.
Whenever I play New World, I go, oh gosh, I wish Square Enix would give Yoshi P this level of budget.
Yeah.
What could he do with this aspect? Because it's just, for me, like I just get absorbed. It's so immersive that it's like, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm just here right now and just absolutely loving it. I'm like, all right.
Oh, and your comment section said, I can't wait for this either. The next version of Bless Online. Can't wait for that to launch. It's gonna be great.
I hear rumors are persistent that a lot of the Bless team is actually working on the Throne and Liberty.
Oh no, are you kidding me?
No.
Oh well, whatever. Well, it'll be fun to play for a week and talk about whether that's saying it's bad because it's bad or being pleasantly surprised. Throne has a lot of cool ideas, so like I like a lot of what they talked about. Their weather system sounds neat, and we'll see.
And I see people using that as a negative, but I'm gonna defend developers, as I want to do. Namely because it's that I always kind of usually chalk it up to bad leadership. So like if the devs and the artists are like, well, we're clearly not getting any work here, and then there's another studio hiring, it's like,
they gotta get
devs,
you gotta get paid, right? You gotta go make your money so you can keep a roof over your head, obviously.
And so like, honestly, like Throne of Liberty's problem or my concern with it literally is its development cycle, in terms of like, it was apparently supposed to be a lineage sequel, and then essentially has evolved, and that could work out in some favor, like when you're like finding the fun, and they have the experience of old school MMOs. So I'm more than willing to give it a shot, but until we really see more, and until you go hands on, especially with an action RPG, my saying, like with Destiny, is like, it's like when you play that game and you shoot those guns, like you're like, oh, I know why this game exists. Like this is really a lot of fun. It doesn't matter about all the BS. The BS will come in later, and you'll dip in and dip out. But whenever you step in and feel it, it feels great. And if you can nail that combat, if you can nail that connection that you have with the game loop, like I'm not then worried about anything else. So if Throne and Liberty you step in and you're like, man, this is a lot of fun. Oh, good. They have a hook. And then essentially okay, if they have a problem here or they need to work this out, then it's a question of like what happens. And especially if Amazon ends up publishing them, which is the persistent rumor that I keep hearing, is that they might be going under the Amazon, umbrella, which could give them plenty of cash and capital to continue.
Remember that Lord of the Rings MMO we were supposed to be getting?
Yeah, but that's because Tencent bought the company out from under them that was working on building it. They still own the IP. The question I wonder is like, did they still own that code? And then are you then trying to shop around for a new team, or do you just say, that's it, we're all hands on with New World? And they're working on apparently a sci-fi MMO, Amazon is.
That's right. Smedley, I think John Smedley is in that. I remember. I'm interested to see what that turns into. As much as I liked it, as long as it's not WildStar.
I think I liked WildStar.
I did too, but it didn't work. It clearly didn't work.
I also wonder, like when we start looking at the business model of MMOs, how they came out with subscription and then essentially had to go free to play. I wonder now if like with New World, like obviously they have the backing of Amazon, but it's like I look at it and go, how amazing would it be as if it's like buy to play battle pass? Like if that ends up being the model, because then it costs you nothing to step back in. My personal hope is that when I talk about battle pass though, is that it doesn't expire like Halo. Like you can buy your battle pass, you equip your battle pass. I just wish Halo didn't suck right now, because then people would be like, hell yeah, Halo got it right. Because I feel like their battle pass in terms of monetization knocks it out of the park. Everything around it sucks ass, and so it's like, come on.
Halo was a lot of fun launch week though. I felt like I was a kid again playing the original. Well, probably more Halo 2, because Halo 2 is really where things
that's my Halo. That's my Halo. That's where I started. Halo 3 really cemented it. Like that's where I was like, that's where I spent the time. But it was Halo 2 was kind of like my okay, this is cool.
I don't know. I think regardless, I'm just excited for more good MMOs to come out. Like talking about Throne and Liberty, like I said, I'm hopeful. I think they have some cool ideas. That trailer, I think, was going at like 10 frames a second though, and after 10 years of development, that has me gravely concerned. And it's kind of like
state.
It's like I talked about this. I made a video on Starfield and how when they released their gameplay trailer, like the frame rate was abysmal. And I think it's important to cement, like, yes, it's an early build. Yeah, but the game was supposed to launch this year, and they made this trailer. This isn't leaked footage. They are showing us the best they can show us. If there was any part in the game that ran above 20 frames a second, they would have showed us that.
Yeah, show that.
You know, so that's the kind of thing that it's just like, God, like I try not to rail too hard, because I do realize video games, more than any other like digital entertainment medium, certainly more so than like movies or whatever, video games come together right at the last minute, right? And they might be they might be an unplayable mess until like right before launch. I mean, all these games going gold, you hear it happens like a month or two out from launch, and it's like before that, they can very much so be a huge mess in a lot of ways, whether that means optimization or bugs or glitches and visual problems, all that stuff. But man, like for a game that was supposed to come out this year, just like that Starfield trailer, Throne and Liberty was supposed to come out this year. That gameplay trailer looked really framey, like abysmally framey.
There's apparently an MMO. It's not obviously Starfield, but it's a lot of people bring it up because when Ash's creation comes up, some people label it as a scam. Some people look at it in terms of like like I view Ashes as a game that's coming out, at least 2 years out. If it comes out sooner, I will be pleasantly surprised if they're ready. But based off the conversations and the verbal words that I hear stated from the devs, I'm like, I cue into some of that terminology. But do you? Oh gosh, I wish maybe chat can fill it in. But it's like one of these like kickstarted perpetually in beta MMOs. It's just like
Pantheon,
not Pantheon. Pantheon is still
Camelot Unchained.
No, it's more space shootery. The I wish. Gosh, sorry, Chad, that I'm drawing a blank on it. But it was one of these.
You're talking about Star Citizen, are you?
Star Citizen. That's the one.
God, how'd you forget Star Citizen?
Jeez. Oh, I was like, how could you not? Like it's just this. That guy was like, why? I was like, you said Starfield, and then I was like, I can't get off the second word. Like it was Star something is what it's called. Yeah. What do you feel about that game? How do you feel?
I don't know. People tell me it's a real game. Every time that comes up, and people meme on that it's made like $7 trillion in funding and it's never going to release, the comments are always, you can play it right now, and it's like playable in some form, but it's just like it's not a complete package. I don't know enough about. From what I understand, it is like you can play Star Citizen today. You can play it. People play it. But is it ever going to be finished? And is it ever going to be like a total package or what they're talking about? I don't know. I haven't followed. I don't care, honestly. Like I'm not, by the time that thing comes out, I will feel like, oh, that game launched 15 years ago, right? Like that's where that game sits in my mind. And I think that can be a problem with long development is just nobody cares by the time it's out. There'll be enough people that care. They're making a lot of money selling ships, but
hype is a hell of a drug. Like you get that right marketing push, and if it's like a polished game and fun experience, like that's where it's like I'm not gonna ever write off a game, in terms of unless they're like we're actively shutting the servers down and whatnot. And that unless they say that, I'm like, you never know. Gamers we're like, I don't know. I see patterns in gamers, and it's like, okay, sometimes you just let things cool off and you let them go get distracted and mad about something else, and you do the work, and then you're like, all right, here's the game. And then you're like, oh man.
I hope for everyone who's looking forward to it or has been following it or people who are playing it today, like I hope it turns out great. I think it's probably just like a not for me kind of thing. There's already too many games, dude, especially for us who like to play loot games and MMOs. And so many of these are massive investments. Like you're not going to get too much if you're playing MMO for 20 hours or there's a lot more there to get if you want it. And so it's really hard. Like I can't be invested in every game, and that Star Citizen is just one that I've just been like, I hope people enjoy it, but it's probably not going to be me. So
yeah, the more the memes come up, because like even I draw on a blank on it, I'm like, I don't hear about it. I don't see about it. All I've ever heard about it is like this is a non-game that people believe is real. And I'm like, at some point, I guess maybe if I find the thing that I lack, which is time, just like, hey, here's some free time. Maybe I'll check it out. Because I saw also chat talking about Albion Online, which I downloaded it and I just haven't even done anything because I don't have time. But I'm willing to check it out. I'm willing to check out more games, but we'll see. All right. That should wrap up the show. This was a lot of fun. Porsche, where can people find you?
YouTube.com/ForceGamingYT or if you could just Google Force Gaming YouTube and you'll probably find it. And that's pretty much it. I don't really stream anymore. It's exhausting.
It's nice not to stream. Like I like streaming. I have like a community game night like once a week, and I was like, I look forward to that. And then outside of that, it's like, oh man, I'd rather make a video.
Yeah. Honestly, the worst part is sitting in front of these lights for multiple hours.
Oh yeah.
Like I get a headache. Can't see straight. Like just having lights glaring in your face for several hours is tough. I'll just sit in my room, write some stuff, and then I'll record for like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way to go.
That's the way to live. Nice.
Yep.
Guys, be sure he's tagged in the title of this. And if you're listening to the MP3 audio, just note that you're a freaking legend. Thanks so much for following the MP3 version of this podcast. I've learned that I need to tell people about it rather than just like publish it and all of a sudden people start following it and stuff like that. So that actually, imagine that. Speaking of which, thanks for the 46 likes. So if you guys haven't hit that like button, that does help out these videos and whatnot. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show here. Thanks so much, everybody, for being a part of this epic conversation talking about the future of MMOs, Diablo 4, looters, so much more with Force Gaming. Be sure to check out his content everywhere over on YouTube. Links are all in the description. And thank you so much for being here with us, whether you are live, watching this as a VOD, or listening to the MP3. Until next time, take care. Boom! I love it.
Nice.
People give me so much credit. They're like, how do you do that? I'm like, I have no idea. One time I got like kids were jumping on me and I was like,
oh no.
I was like, okay. And they're like, we want popsicles. We want popsicles. It's like, yeah, like that's the kind of show. You never know what you're going to get into. Sometimes it like goes well. I remind Julie, it's like, hey, podcast. I used to call these meetings.
Yeah.
And it seems like I don't get interrupted if I say to her it's a podcast. But if I'm like, I'm in a meeting,
there's more wiggle room with meeting, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, oh man. And so it's like, that's why I'm like, I got the hard mute, but I haven't had to use it much today. But all right, chat. Thanks so much for being here with us during the live show. Really appreciate you guys. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. I'm going to hit end broadcast. We're going to send Force on his way. It's going to spin its